On today's show, it took 21 years, but the Battle of Ontario is back. We'll give our immediate impression and what to expect when the Ottawa Senators and Toronto Maple Leafs drop the puck for Game 1 of Round 1 in the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
So who better to have on the show than the radio voice of the Ottawa Senators, Steen Brown.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just head to FanDuel.com to get started. Today is Wednesday, April 16th, and Pilsy, the Ottawa Senators have made the playoffs. Now we know that they're going to play the Toronto Maple Leafs 21 years to the day later if it starts on Sunday, like we expect. The anxiety and stress is starting to creep in, though, I will say.
No, Ross, I'm going to be positive Pilsy here. Sure, there is some anxiety, some stress, but I'm leaning way more on the side of excitement, anticipation. I have never experienced Ottawa Senators live playoff hockey at the Canadian Tire Center. I can't wait for this. This is what we wanted. If you would have told me, you, every single Sens Central citizen we had on the show this year and in the offseason, you're making the playoffs and you're playing the Leafs, everyone would have said, sign me up. How do I buy tickets? So this is the absolute opportunity for Ottawa Senators and their fan base to really enjoy the moment. Like that, we could have gone up against like the Washington Capitals, a team you don't really have any like rivalry with. There's not any like deep storylines there. I mean, I guess you could go the off-ice political capital cities, but
Capital gains.
Yeah, we're sticking to the pure hockey of it. Battle of Ontario. These two rival teams finally are at a spot where they're competitive with each other for years, for over a decade. It seems like one of them was great and the other one was rebuilding, and then they flipped. So now, sure, the Leafs win the Atlantic Division. Congrats. Nice job. But your regular season accolades don't mean anything when the puck drops in the postseason. Often it's the scrappy underdogs that really surprise teams.
So we can't then say the Sens had the season series sweep and have won 6 of the last 7 head-to-head against the Leafs?
You can say it, but does it mean anything?
No.
I don't know. I'm not sure, because say what you want about the Leafs, Ross, but this team and that core has been to the playoffs every single year since the Ottawa Senators missed the playoffs. So yeah,
it's their ninth straight playoffs for the Leafs. They've won 1 series. Ottawa has more playoff series wins over that stretch.
Yeah. Which, I mean, again, you can say that. That's a fact, but does it count for anything? There wasn't a single player on the Sens roster that played in that series in 2017. So it's all going to change once the playoffs start here, and we're going to see what each team is made of. For the Ottawa Senators, this is them opening a new chapter in their story. For the Toronto Maple Leafs, this could likely be them closing a chapter on their story, as there's so many players that are stuck on the last year of their deal. If they can't have success in the playoffs, the management ultimately has to decide, okay, unfortunately, sure, this core makes the playoffs every year, but they're not having the success we want. I'm sure guys will want to move on. Guys are due for big pay raises. So the storylines for both of these teams coming to a head right now are just so exciting. Like, this is what you dream of. If not even just a Sens or a Leafs fan, a hockey fan, like this will be maybe Dallas, Colorado, maybe the Battle of Florida gets in there too. But for my money and what I would assume most hockey fans are most excited about, the Battle of Ontario is right up there.
I told Mike DeStefano we're recording Locked On NHL. You can check that out on Locked On NHL. Shout out to the everydayers out there. This is the biggest storyline in Canada over the next 2 weeks. Forget the federal election. This is the biggest storyline. The Battle of Ontario is back. What's at stake for the Ottawa Senators?
I don't know. Maybe this is going to sound bad, Ross, and let us know in the comments if you disagree, but I would say not a whole lot. The Senators, if we're looking at the pressure meter, 100% pressure, I would say the Leafs have 85% of the pressure and the Sens maybe 15. Like, this is your first time in the playoffs in years. You're going up against a team that won the Atlantic Division. Sure, you got the best of them in the regular season, but if we're looking at just straight odds and strength of regular season overall success, you obviously have to hand it to the Leafs. And
great regular season team.
Great regular season team. Yeah, if we're going off that into the playoffs, that has to be noted. But if you're the Sens and things don't go your way, well, this is your first time here in a while. This is a lot of your core players' first time in the playoffs. This is a learning experience that you have to build on. Whereas if you're the Leafs and you end up losing this to your provincial rival, a team that's just finding success, and you're supposed to go not only past the first round, but beyond, according to your expectations as a team and an organization, it's high risk for the Leafs here. And I don't think the pressure is really on the Sens that much. And I think that is a massive advantage.
Tomorrow, we will look at all the storylines in this series. Today, it's just trying to make sense of what we're about to see with the Senators and the Leafs. Sens fans are quick to remember that they beat the Leafs 4-2 on March 15th. Pilsy, the Leafs have played 15 games since then and have 2 regulation losses.
Yeah, wow.
They're 12-2-1
hungry for that division lead. It's a big deal for them.
And they got it. They have a plus 23 goal differential in their last 15 games. Their goaltending has been ridiculous over the last 2 weeks. I like Ottawa. I like the way they match up. Ottawa's not going to run and gun with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're going to try to shut them down and grind down low, play a physical style that will make them uncomfortable. They don't have as many, I would say, puck movers on the back end. They really tried to strengthen that with Chris Tanev and Jake McCabe. Who knows if McCabe's going to be healthy for game 1? It doesn't seem likely. If Ottawa can get on Morgan Rielly early in this series, and I'm assuming that number 7 on Ottawa will target him every single shift, that to me could be a key decider, along with Shane Pinto continuing his dominance of Austin Matthews that we saw in the regular season. When it comes to shot attempts, the Leafs are not trying to shoot everything at net. They are the antithesis of the Carolina Hurricanes. The Toronto Maple Leafs want high danger shots. They want to get open men in the slot. They want to be able to run and gun and have Nylander sneak in on breakaways like it seems he gets every night. They want Matthews to be able to rip it from the high slot. They are a predictable team. That's where coaching, to me, is going to be an enormous aspect of that game. Making sure Pinto, even in Toronto, when you don't have last change, gets out there against Matthews every single shift. That's where you have to be able to get the offensive zone time. If Fabian Zetterlund is the guy in the bottom 6 when Brady Tkachuk gets back, how can you sneak him out for an extra shift in the offensive zone while you have controlled possession? I'm going to be watching the coaching matchup like a hawk in this series. And the irony being that Travis Green was a part of Battles of Ontario as a player for the Leafs. It's just going to be fantastic. So stay tuned for tomorrow's Locked On Senators for plenty of more storylines. Pilsy, what's the one, though, that you're really itching to get out there? Because we'll dive deep into the numbers, the analytics. We'll look at both teams' expected rosters. That for a full show tomorrow, because we got a great chat coming up with Dean Brown.
Yeah, for me, it's the goaltending. Hashtag goalie-friendly show. But the Ottawa Senators have a clear number 1, and the Leafs have 2, as you mentioned, really hot goalies right now. I'm not sure which one's been hotter or who's been leading the charge. I think it's Stolarz, though, right?
Yeah, I can answer that for you pretty quickly here. Since losing to the Ottawa Senators, Anthony Stolarz was in goal for that. He has been lights out. He's coming off back-to-back shutouts. He's 8-0 since that Senators loss, and he's allowed 11 goals in his last 8 games. That's a .950 save percentage.
Yeah. So for me, and I mentioned this on the postcast last night, Ross, it's very rare for me to put a lot of emphasis on game one, but I think game one's going to be huge for the Sens. If you can creep into the goalies' minds and the coaching mind and the players that you just beat their top guy and maybe they need to start thinking about switching. Oh my God. If you could just wedge your foot in there and have them believe that they can't close the door and be like, Stolarz is our guy, I think that's a massive advantage. So I need the Sens to jump on Stolarz if he's the guy that's starting, which I assume he is, right away early in game one. But I really do think this is going to be the Leafs are going to press, the Sens have to defend, and then you have to get your opportunities and capitalize on them. Because look, I hate to say it, but the Leafs top end talent is just, they're ahead of the Sens. Like you can't deny it. Mitch Marner had 100 points. William Nylander, 84. Austin Matthews, 77. The leading point getter on the Ottawa Senators, Tim Stützle, has 76. So they have 3 players with more points than our leading point getter.
And how many games did Matthews miss?
Yeah, he's only got 66 games under his belt. And then Tavares is right there with 74 too. Like they have a 45 goal scorer, a 32 goal scorer, 38. The Sens don't even have a 30 goal scorer. So like you have to give them the nod. They have that top end talent. And that's why Berube has probably instilled that mentality of, hey, let's not just chuck pucks at the net. We've got guys that can finish. Let's get them in the spots, and then they can let it rip. So the Ottawa Senators are going to have to find ways to play a smart, defensive, structured game to not allow those pockets where those guys can get high danger scoring opportunities. And look, it's going to happen. And when it does, when they do get those opportunities, you need your former Vezina winning goaltender to be there. Like the Sens are going to have to hold, quick push. I think that's what we're going to see here in this series.
And pucks at the net for Ottawa is going to be critical. Ottawa was top 3 in the National Hockey League of goals scored within 5 feet of the net. They're going to have to grit and grind their way to goals, and it is going to be theater to watch because for the first 10 minutes of game one, you say hold, and I say forecheck. Make life miserable. I want every Leaf to go back to the bench and say, holy crap, we got to deal with this for another week and a half. They are coming at us hard, and this is perfect for my take that you start Ridley Gregg, Brady Tkachuk, and Nick Cousins. Game one in Toronto, run around, do your thing, and knock Matthews, especially the guys you're targeting are Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and Morgan Riley. Those 3 players, every time they touch the puck, I want them to get hit.
I love that idea for game 3, the first game in Ottawa. Yeah. I think for game 1 against the Leafs, since you don't get to pick the line matchups, Ross, I think you put your shutdown line.
I was actually going to start Chris Neil for game 3.
Okay, yeah, smart. But I just think because you could get into a situation where those guys are stuck out on the ice longer than you want. So I just think start your shutdown line, game 1, puck drop, face off.
Let us know your main storylines. I want your top 3 storylines going into the Battle of Ontario. We've got a great week planned. Storylines tomorrow, Jamie McLennan on Friday, and a crossover with Mike DiStefano, also known as Al's brother from Overdrive, and Dave Morisuti, the Locked On Maple Leafs boys, on Saturday. Bonus episode. We're not taking days off. It's the playoffs. Postcast on Sunday. Fire us right up. Now, we've been saying Sunday a lot. The schedule is not official, but all signs point to Sunday being game 1. The man who will be calling that game on radio for Ottawa, TSN 1200's Dean Brown, he has an idea of who's going to create the hate in this series. Battle of Ontario preview with Dean Brown next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and buying Ottawa Senators playoff tickets, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, though. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building that wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track and share your personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all that stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
All right, we now welcome a very good friend of the show, a 6-time recurring guest, the voice of the Ottawa Senators on TSN 1200 since day one. He's seen some Battle of Ontario's, and here he is. Dean Brown, how are you doing today, sir?
Boys, I'm doing great. Playoffs are coming. It's the best time of the year if you love hockey, and Ottawa being back in the playoffs, I'm not going to lie, I am very much looking forward to calling playoff hockey again, and Gordon and I cannot wait to get started. It's a very exciting time of the year.
Before the season even started, we had fans on every single week, and it was, okay, 1, do you think they're going to make the playoffs? 2, who do you want to play? And everybody said the Toronto Maple Leafs. You've seen them play 3 times head-to-head this year. How do you like that matchup for the Ottawa Senators?
Well, I think first thing, Ross, is that you have to just open and acknowledge that anybody that Ottawa was going to face, Ottawa was going to be the underdog. So Ottawa is the underdog. You know, the points don't lie. You play 82 games to set your standard, and over the course of the regular season, Toronto has been the better team. They've got more points. But, you know, kind of the way I looked at it, just having seen how Ottawa plays against certain teams and just forget about the standings, I said to a lot of people, I think Ottawa, a Toronto matchup or a Washington matchup would be good for them because they played so well against both those teams. Didn't like the Florida matchup because they have trouble with Florida, the defending champs. And I think probably, even though they didn't obviously win their division, I think in probably the last month and a half of the season, the best team in the East has been Tampa. So I'm not sure you want to face them. So I think even though Ottawa's the underdog, I like their chances against Toronto. They in certain circumstances, they have kind of been Toronto's kryptonite. So Toronto is the better team, no doubt about it. But in the playoffs, if you get in, anything can happen. Anything can happen if you get in, and Ottawa's in.
Yeah, Sens fans certainly like their chances up against the Leafs. Dean, does your approach change when you're doing regular season games versus doing playoff games? Like, is there a shift in your focus, your mentality, or do you keep it the same?
No, it's the same. And to be honest with you, this goes back a long ways, way earlier in my career. And I was talking with one of the great broadcasters in the history of our country, Don Whitman, the late Don Whitman. And I remember when I was doing football, back in the 80s, and we were having this discussion over a pregame meal. I think it was in Calgary. He was doing the TV for the football game, and I was obviously doing Ottawa radio. And we started talking about this, and I forget who brought it up, but he made a very good point. He said, well, so preseason games you call like at one level and you put this much preparation into them, and regular season games you give it this much effort and this much preparation, and playoff games you give it this much. So why are you shortchanging your listeners in the preseason? Why are you not giving them your full effort, your full commitment to the broadcast in the preseason? Because you don't think it's important. It's important to them. It's an important game to them. It's the one they're tuned into. It's the one they're focused on that week. So I've always kind of taken that in stride and said to myself, I think that's absolutely right. So I put the same effort into preparation, the same amount of time into a preseason game as I do for a postseason game. Like I'm a big prep guy. I admit that. I'm not smart enough. I'm not Liam McGuire. I'm not smart enough to remember important things. So I need to do lots of prep. And as far as how I go about calling the game, you call it based on the excitement level. So it might be a bit more exciting because playoff games by their nature are often just more exciting, but you're trying to transmit to the listeners, the excitement of the venue, the excitement of the game, and the importance of the game. And if that is heightened, then yeah, you have a certain heightened broadcast, but the effort you put into it and the amount of prep you put into it is no different, and it shouldn't be.
And you get paid the same for both preseason and playoffs.
No I in team, but 2 in invoice. You're right about that, my friend. Yeah, pays the same. So you're going to get the same effort. Gordon and I we strive, by and large, we strive on every game to give a solid B-, C+ kind of effort. Because if you go for the A, B effort all the time, that becomes the standard. So when you fall below that, people are disappointed. No one's ever disappointed with Dean and Gord because we're always very, very solidly mediocre. That's our goal.
Damn, you're giving away our secrets too, Dean.
Sounds similar, eh?
so with the mecca of hockey media-wise, do you have some spiked elbow pads for the scrums or what?
You know what? From my remembrance of playoff hockey, there isn't a lot of scrums anymore. Number one, and number two, the sheer number of media members, because of the implosion of many parts of our business, there's not nearly as much media as there used to be. And nowadays, and like I said, it's been 7 years since I've been in this situation, but they've kind of the league had kind of changed the way they do these things, and there are fewer scrums. There's podiums. You go and plug in whatever recording device you're recording. You ask questions from the floor. They have a podium, and so it's really not elbowing and stuff that much, but it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that again, if they still do it the same way, because like I said, it's been a while since I've been in one of those, and the media landscape has changed. There's, to be honest with you, in a lot of rinks, there's a lot more room on press row than there used to be.
So that was me tap dancing because I was looking for something particular for our people who are watching on YouTube right now. But you mentioned the prep, and I found one of your notebooks. Can you take us through?
That's Gord's.
Do you do the similar thing?
No, mine's completely different. As a matter of fact, I don't know two guys in our business who do it the same way. Mine. Hold on a second. Mine is very different. Here is.
Here we go.
Here is the season so far. This is all the games so far this season, and one is made for each game. And so mine looks more like this. And then you've got the back page, which has more stuff on it. Then you've got the front page of the visiting team and the back page. So it's all your stories, all your stats, all the things you want to touch on during the game, and just the basic stuff, which is basically just league stats. When you're saying things on the air, people think that you automatically know what their ranking is on shots for on average per game. Well, I don't automatically know that, but I have it on my sheet here. You know what I mean? So these are constructed. The one you showed, that's Gord's system. But like I said, I don't know two guys in our business who do their prep the same way. So you're going to see them all different. But this is this season so far.
That was just us making sure that the interview wasn't too good. We needed to get back to a C+. So I brought up the wrong prep.
Smart.
No, that's fine. That's Gord has many of those books, because obviously when he fills one, he goes to the next. But mine is more stats and information based. His is more lines based. He fills his out. He has the lines, and then I just find that difficult because lines change, and sometimes you don't know exactly what the lines are before the game. Sometimes coaches are open about telling you that, and sometimes they're not. So but Gord has erasable pens. That's his great superpower. Gord has erasable pens. So if he's got guys lined up, because we usually start doing your show prep the night before, not the day of, because to be honest with you, it's pretty hard to get all that work done on a game day, as well as being at the morning skate. So a lot of stuff you start doing it the night before. So lots of times Gord has to erase one guy and move it over here and move it over there. With my system, I don't, because mine is just a numerical system. But like I said, everybody has their systems.
Hope you're enjoying our chat with Dino. We'll get right back to it. But first, Pilsy's got a word from our friends at FanDuel.
Yes, the NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on that action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into some player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into same-game parlays for your chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Now, how much are you able to look on your notes and things like that when you're calling the game? Like, I feel like for color, it's a little different because you have those moments to pause and you can be like, hey, I want to talk about this replay. I want this stat. But with you got to keep your eyes on the game and on the puck. And So how do you reference those notes during the game?
Well, a lot of the stuff that I'll use not while I'm doing the play-by-play. When I'm doing the play-by-play, I'm focused on the ice. I'm focused on the player, on the puck. But when Gord starts doing color, I will look through my notes to try and find something that will tie into what he's talking about. And I don't know exactly what he's saying, but oftentimes we've known each other for so long. I know the areas that Gord goes into, and he knows the ones I do. And so I'll try to find some stat or some story that ties into what he's talking about. And then that way, when he's done talking, I bring that up and then move on to the next thing. The other thing is, you probably saw how much handwriting there is on mine. Over the years, I tried to go to a total digital kind of prep work for me. And Chris Cuthbert and I, Cece and I have talked about this many times. I went back to, mine is half digital, where I have a template that I make up, and the other half is written in. And the reason for that is that I don't have the ability to absorb the information as well if I don't write it out. And Cece's the same way. We've talked about this. And so it doesn't take me any time to find the note, because I already know that I have it and I pretty much know what it is. And I can just flip back to it to make sure that the numbers that I'm going to be talking about, or whatever I'm talking about, is correct. But I don't have to search for it, because since I write it out by hand, it just helps me remember it more. And I know guys that do theirs all totally digitally, and it works for them. For me, my recall ability is just better if I actually write it out. So it takes more time. But it's better for me. And there's other guys like me and other guys that are not like me. And that's, again, the personal nature of show prep.
Speaking of Chris Cuthbert, I'd imagine he's going to be on the TV call for this series as the main guy for Sportsnet. What, if any, collaboration goes into the prep? Like, are you chatting up with him and with other people who are on Media Row and trying to get information that way? Or do you have a system where it's just, hey, I know what stats I like to look up, I just do that and write it down?
No, there's always things, and it's not just stats, it's stories, and there's a whole bunch of things. There's always things that you can learn from everybody else. Like when you think you don't need to learn from anybody else, you should quit, because then you become too arrogant for this game. Like, you can learn every day. If you don't think you have anything else to learn, you should just pack up and go home, because you've lost it. That's. So yeah, we talk, like at morning skates and at practices, you'll see lots of media guys, and you generally hang out more with the guys that you know. Like, that's not like you're trying to shun other people, but guys you've known for 30 years, you end up chatting with them more because you're friends, besides doing the same job. So we'll share things we know or bring up things and go, oh, that's great, I'm going to use that in mine. And to be honest with you, like some of the research guys that work for Sportsnet were still there when I worked for Sportsnet and when I worked for Hockey Night in Canada. So sometimes, hey, Dino, here's a good pass. They'll pass things along to me. And, the guys from TSN, even though they're not doing playoff games, they still have a full research department, and we get access to that stuff, and they are outstanding. Like, the stuff they dig up is outstanding. So we can sprinkle that stuff through. But like the other people, the other media people that are there and other broadcasters, we share things with each other all the time, because in a lot of cases, we are our own best resource. Because really, the only ones who, for my job, for a play-by-play guy, the only people who really understand the job are the other people who do the job. Like, it's not the kind of thing where, it's like the people who think they can direct a movie because they watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Like the people who think they're experts doing play-by-play, who have never done play-by-play, are the ones who just think they're experts. Like, so if you want to be able to talk the same language and understand the same thing, you talk to another play-by-play guy, and there's just a language we have with each other because we both understand the job. And so we share with each other. And like I said, there's just, when you've been doing as long as Gord and I have, you have relationships with so many of the other guys. And so it's also just a great way to catch up with friends, sitting in the stands, watching a practice, get to catch up, find out what's going on in their life. And it's just, to be honest with you, it's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing, because people say to me all the time, they go, well, why do you keep going to morning skates? Like, what do you learn from that? Like, how many have you seen? 1,000? And I say, well, you see line rushes, and sometimes you can see what guys are working on after the morning skate, because that tells you what they think they need to improve on, because that's what they work on when they're by themselves. But the other thing is, it's a chance to meet with your friends and talk and share information and stuff. And that social part of it, and that mixing of information, is a great benefit to every broadcast. That is the special sauce that you bring to the broadcast. All those little tidbits and stories that aren't in any notes package, that aren't written somewhere on the internet, that are, that is the special sauce.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like the locker room camaraderie that athletes have, right?
Yeah,
Like you
same
talk
thing.
to any retired athlete, the one thing they always say, "What do you miss?" Being with the guys. So I totally get that.
Yeah, for sure.
So Dean, the Battle of Ontario comes with all this hype, the big rivalry, Toronto, Ottawa, but these two teams haven't played in the playoffs against each other in 21 years. Like everybody
To the
references it.
day.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. Everyone references it as if it's this classic thing that happens all the time. But like for the longest time, these two teams have not been on the same level. One's rebuilding, one's competing, then they flip. So now they're finally back in the playoffs. So I wanted to ask you, as someone that's covered it back in the day, do you see similarities or differences? Like, how would you compare this Battle of Ontario in the playoffs to the last one in 2004?
Get your notes out, Dean.
Yeah, let's see the notes from this one.
You know what? I have them somewhere. Because I don't throw any away. I have them stacked
nice.
up. I'm thinking about another story. I'm thinking about selling some of them because my buddy Rossi, who's the PA guy in Toronto, he has a little auction for his game notes and stuff, which are exclusive, and he gives all the money to charity.
Nice.
So I might do, if there's a game that people like and they want to give me $20 for it and all the money goes to some charity, I might start doing that. But anyway, as far as the similarities, I hate to be a killjoy, but there aren't any. Let's be honest. We in the media, the whole Battle of Ontario thing is a media thing. It's not a player thing. The players on today's teams, both teams, have no memory of the Battle of Ontario, no recollection, no reference point to it. They weren't a part
Coaches
of it.
on Ottawa do, though.
Yeah, they do. But
there's a Domi out there.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. There's
And a McCabe.
there's little shards. There's little shards of connection all the way through. But to be honest with you, any rivalry, not just this one, any good rivalry in hockey is built on hatred. It's not built on storylines generated by the media. And don't get me wrong, hate is good for hockey. I've trademarked that, by the way. I came up with that like 30 years ago. So if you hear the hate is good for hockey, that's a Dean Brownism. I trademarked. Yeah, exactly. But it's true. Hate is good for hockey. And these two teams, they play against each other, and some guys have pushed each other around and called each other's names. But this is not hatred yet. It will be the Battle of Ontario again if there's some hate that develops. And I hope it does, because it's the most entertaining thing. But one of the things that I was talking with a couple of the young reporters who really were too young to remember it, and they were asking me about it. And I said, well, the thing was that it wasn't just something that you said. The players playing against each other legitimately hated each other, and the fans hated each other. And it was legitimate. It wasn't some kind of a made-up thing. It wasn't a construct. It was legitimate. And as this series opens, we can call it in the media, we can call it the Battle of Ontario a billion times, but it isn't until there's real hate. And when there's real hate, you're going to see some real entertaining hockey. So I'm actually hoping for the hate. That's like if I was going to print up a T-shirt going into this series, let's hope for the hate, because that's going to make it great hockey for everybody.
Okay, so who's most likely to create hate?
Oh, come on.
Series?
Ross, give your head a shake. You're not really asking me that, are you? If I gave you 1,000 guesses, you would get it on the first guess. Brady Tkachuk, if there's going to be a fuse, it's going to be the top of his head just burning down to the wick, because he is going to blow up 2 or 3 guys. Really, Morgan Riley should take out extra insurance, because like Ottawa knows the best defenseman they have is Morgan Riley, and you got to focus on him. And Toronto's going to focus on Sanderson and Shabbat. That's the way it goes. But we all have seen, we all know Brady, and the kind of player Brady is. And if that incendiary element moves into this series, I'm sure he will be either at the start of it or certainly in the middle of it. And that's the way it's going to be. And you know what? I would think from the other side, I would be keeping a close eye on Max Domi. He is a fiery little guy that likes to get things going. And that's good for hockey. That's good for this storyline. But come on, Ross, you knew the answer as soon as you opened your mouth. Come on.
Yeah, there's another honorary mention, though, and I think the Leafs already have a disdain for Ridley Gregg. I see him in the middle of everything, too.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question. And you know what? And Nick Cousins will also be a guy that contributes to that little annoyance factor.
Does he have any history against the Leafs in the playoffs?
he's got history against everybody. Like I think a couple of years ago on that players poll, he was listed as the most hated player in the league.
Well,
so,
yeah, he
player
also
you want to punch in the face.
Yeah,
most
yeah.
was
I think
the
that's how
quote.
they worded. Yeah,
Yeah.
the guy they wanted to punch the most. And you love him when he's on your team. You hate him when he's on any other team. So, so that'll be there. But you know what? Ridley, great. No disrespect, but Ridley, Greg, and Nick Cousins. Those are Gatlin guns. Brady Tkachuk is the A-bomb. He's, he can go in and blow things up in a big, big way. So all good things to have as part of your arsenal going into a series like this for Ottawa. I think that's definitely an advantage for them. They have more of that in their lineup than Toronto does. But you have to see, who pushes back from the other side. You have to see, Toronto's a very prideful team. They got a ton on the line here. They see themselves as a team that should be a Stanley Cup contender. They know where they want to go. So let's see how bad they want to go there.
Well, I got a final question for you. Actually, it's a two-parter. First off, did having 3 Browns prepare you for 2 Cousins?
Yeah, the Logan Brown, Connor Brown, Zach Brown.
Josh.
Josh. But Zach Brown was also there's 4. Remember, he was still a defenseman on this team at that time.
Oh, Jesus.
Am I wrong about that?
I think you're talking about the country music
Brown?
singer. Oh, Patrick Brown.
But Patrick came in later in the season. Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, he came in later in the season. You know what? It just means I have to add a first name to the guy. Not a big deal. You have to do it all. There was that time in Vancouver where they had 3 Pedersons. So, it's just something you have to go through. It's, it's part of the gig, but I'm ready for it. I'm okay with it.
Well, especially for radio, right? The theater of the mind is great.
Theater of the mind, baby.
Like, you have to be able to be more descriptive on TV. I think it's pretty clear when you say Cousins has the puck down the middle that it's probably Dylan Cousins. But I love that that you've had some prep there.
I'll have to pitch my voice a little bit differently so that people will be able to tell without me saying it which one's the taller of the 2 Cousins. Which
Can you just sound like a rat? That'll make it easy. Well, no. Say, I want to punch this guy in the face. Cousins has the puck up the left wing.
There you go. Well, I don't want to punch him, but I know people do,
Just a couple. And he ended the Leafs playoffs 2 years ago. They finally got out of the first round, and then Nick Cousins was there waiting for him like the Undertaker. So, hey, we appreciate the hell out of you, Dean. We're looking forward to hearing you on the call. Pills, you got any final ones for Dean?
Yes, I got a final question. It's a trivia question.
Oh,
wow.
I'm terrible at trivia. What are you doing to me? You're killing me.
But Ross can help you. This is courtesy of our guy, Nick Spence. He sent me this trivia question. I thought it was a good one.
Okay.
Who is the last Ottawa Senators player to score a goal against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs? So who scored a goal in Game 7, 0-4? You can't look. You're looking it up right now, Ross.
I won't look it up.
Nice try. Nice try.
I'm curious.
I have no idea. I wouldn't even know. This is when I really wish that I had half of the recall and memory abilities of my buddy Liam McGuire, because he'd spit this out in record time. I have no idea. I'm trying to even remember all the guys who were on that team.
Yeah, I mean, it's 21 years ago, so that's definitely fair.
Yeah. You know what? If you're ever having a trivia question for the Ottawa Senators and you don't know the answer, it's Daniel Alfredson.
It is
was
not.
It Daniel? Was it Elson?
Not.
No, damn it.
Okay.
Vaclav Varada.
Oh, okay,
no
yeah.
right.
Everyone remembers that.
Yeah, It's a tough one. But Battle of Ontario, who's the last one to get it? So who will be the first one in this new era?
Yeah, make your call, Dean. You came on this show. Michael Amadio was ice cold, and you said, I think he's got an extra gear. He goes out and scores in Boston the next night.
And you know what? I'm not meaning to point the finger at myself here because I wasn't the only one, but hasn't he become what we talked about that day? Hasn't he become, he was that before, but I think people needed time to see what that was, because a lot of what he does is subtle and not, a gigantic explosion of something. It's just this constant pressure on the puck, constantly holding the puck, constantly possessing it. Possession numbers are high, waiting to get the puck to his team. And now people are saying, oh yeah, like he doesn't look flashy, but that is unbelievably effective. And people are now seeing what we talked about whenever the last time we talked was.
Yeah, I think it was the middle of January. And ever since then, he's one of the top goal scorers on the team as well. It's been incredible to see. It's going to be incredible to hear you and Gord on the call for playoff games again. I'm a big proponent of syncing the radio to the TV. We recommend everybody do that to get Dean and Gord on the call. Dean, really appreciate you, a true friend of the show. Your swag's in the mail. We appreciate you. We'll do this again soon.
Anytime, boys.
All right, Pillsy, I'm fired up for this Battle of Ontario. Just thinking it through and knowing that the playoffs are always going to be a UFC cage match, especially when it's heated rivals that get together. I like the way the Senators are built for this series, and I cannot wait to dive into every single storyline on tomorrow's show. But Pillsy, Dean was quick to say it's going to be number 7. But who is a sneaky player? And I know I mentioned Ridley Gregg, but is there a sneaky player on the roster that you think could play a big role in this series?
Well, I mean, we also mentioned Nick Cousins. That was going to be the guy I mentioned because I mean, Brady's the obvious answer, and Dean makes a good point. Like it's hard to really say much beyond that, but I just think someone in the bottom 6 that is going to have less of a role offensively and is only going to get what Nick Cousins probably only get 8 to 11 minutes a night, if that. He's going to be doing everything he can every shift to be getting under guys' skin, playing physical, a little extra whack after the whistle, things like that, right? Where I think that's going to drive the Leafs players nuts. And, you know, they can say all they want. You know, they can hit him with the chirps, fourth line pigeon, blah, blah, blah. He can say, well, I wouldn't talk that too much because I'm the guy that scored the game winner to knock you guys out of the playoffs years ago. So he can do it all, Nick Cousins. And that would be my answer. I know it's not that sneaky as he's a huge rat and everybody in the league hates him. But when he's on your team, you love that guy.
I got one. Tyler Kleven is my answer. He's only going to play, I think, probably 10 to 12 minutes a night. Yeah. I think they're really going to double shift Jake Sanderson as often as possible and Thomas Chabot on the left side. But I think if he can be a sneaky physical presence, if we get a K-train hit choo-choo in the first 2 games, I think he's a guy where all of a sudden now when a player's coming in on the forecheck, he knows that he's got to keep his head up for a reverse hit and that sort of thing. And there's going to be some physicality there. And you're going to have to be aware when Tyler, if he can put a stamp on the series, at least like one big hit, it's going to make everybody on the Leafs, I think, walk a little bit smaller across the blue line as well when they bring the puck in. They don't know if it's going to be Thomas Chabot or if it's going to be Tyler Kleven waiting for them across the other side. So that's going to be my sneaky answer, my lower of the lineup guy that could be a big impact on the series. I'll go with Tyler Kleven for that one. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Yes, final thoughts for me. We're talking playoffs these days as Ottawa Senators fans, but I haven't given up hope on the Belleville Senators, Ross. Do not give up hope. There still is a possibility. They are 6th in the North Division, 4 points back from the Toronto Marlies, 5 points back from the Cleveland Monsters, 6 points back from the Syracuse Crunch. All of these teams have 3 games remaining, and the Ottawa Senators are up against the
Belleville.
Belleville rather, up against the division-leading Laval Rocket for all 3 games left in the regular season. I'm hoping Laval takes their foot off the pedal a little, gets a little complacent and entitled, being like, we already clinched the division. We don't need to push that hard here. And Belleville finds a way to sneak in. Angus Crookshank did just get called back down to Belleville, so that's a huge boost for that team. Levi Merilinen's got to have something to prove here. I'm not saying it's going to happen, Ross, but I haven't given up hope. I still believe. Let's get both the teams in the playoffs. Oh my God, that would be exciting.
Meanwhile, in junior hockey, Carter Yakimchuk had an assist last night and Calgary got its first win in the second round. So now they are trailing Lethbridge by a series score of 2-1. They're back in action tonight in Lethbridge, a little back-to-back. That's junior hockey for you there. Game 5 would be Friday back in Calgary. So we'll be waiting on Yak Watch a little bit longer. Nice to see him contribute a little bit offensively, but still waiting for a big breakout game for him in these WHL playoffs. Meanwhile, the OHL playoffs continue, and we still have lots of Sens prospects in action, although Kitchener is finding themselves down in their series. They're losing 3-0 to the Windsor Spitfires.
Whoa.
The Barrie Colts are up 2-1 in their series against Kingston, and Tomas Hamara is up 2-1 in their series against the Oshawa Generals. No surprise, Blake Montgomery and the London Knights are up 3-0 against Erie. They haven't lost a game yet in the playoffs. The London Knights are 7-0. We'll be following that along a little bit less because it's all playoffs all the time here on Locked On Senators. If you missed it last week, we had Jamie Campbell on. We also had our ideal Game 1 playoff lineup. So check those out wherever you get podcasts and let us know in the comments what your top 3 storylines are for the Ottawa Senators versus Toronto Maple Leafs Battle of Ontario. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.